Hey there guys, Aldershot here, and today we're going to do an impression video on Diablo 3 Reapers of Souls, as well as the new version 2.0 that was fairly recently released. With these two things in combination, the expansion pack as well as the new updates of version 2.0, Diablo 3 has really changed quite significantly. Now, Diablo 3 isn't exactly a new game, so I'm not going to actually go into, heavy detail of the mechanics of the game, such as how to control your character. Alright, I think you guys already kind of know what to expect from Diablo 3. Rather, I'm going to talk about some of the changes from version 2.0 as well as the expansion, and talk about how I feel about it, of course. Alright, so let's get right into it. Before I do, actually, something cool. The game actually added clans. So you can actually create clans and add your friends to it, and as you can see in the chat box, you can see what the clan is talking about and what they've been looting and all that stuff. So that's already kind of neat. So let's actually get into the game. I do like the clan feature, I must say. It definitely gives you more of a sense of community, which is nice. Alright. So, with the expansion, obviously you get a new campaign. You also gain 10 new levels, as I am currently running a level 70 wizard. The previous cap was 60, as many of you guys know. New level cap is 70, and with a higher level cap will come additional skills, as well as a lot more changes to the current skills that classes once had as well, with the update and such. So let's explore that a tiny bit. Alright, so I'm not going to talk about each individual changes to the skills that that some of the classes have, but I'll talk about one. Alright, as I'm playing a wizard, they took away critical mass. There is no critical mass anymore. Alright, that is completely gone. A lot of wizards who play Diablo 3 know very much that critical mass was a passive skill that was abused quite heavily in something called the CM build, or the critical mass build. And basically what it did was allowed you to ignore cooldowns, build and stack up a bunch of critical hit percentage, and with each critical hit percentage or each critical hit that you gain, your cooldown would be reduced significantly, basically making all your skills constant and cooldownless in that CM build. So that skill was completely taken out. Alright, now some people might not like this, but personally I don't miss it too much, because I found it to be a little bit overpowering. So I don't really mind it. I can understand where they're coming from. Some people will disagree with me, and I can completely understand that, honestly. Alright, so with the new expansion, there's also a new artisan as well. Miriam is her name. She's essentially an enchantress, and she does a couple of things. She can replace certain stats on a specific piece of gear. For example, this helmet, let's say I want to replace this 11% life. Alright, I can hit this question mark here, and it'll actually show you the possible stats that I can gain to replace that said stat with. Now I don't have the money to actually do I have the money? I do, so I'll do it as an example. Why not? So in this slot here, I can potentially get a socket or one of these other stats, and you can see the range of power that you can gain as well. For example, if I get armor, then I will gain anywhere between 340 to 545 armor, which is pretty nice. It's nice and transparent. Alright, and each different slot, okay, well this is a, okay, yeah, with each different slot, as you can see, you'll have a chance to roll different stat types. But for example, let's just change this one for now. Alright, so I want to replace this property, and it will actually give you two random stats that you can replace it with. And I have two armor stats. Obviously I'm going to choose the higher end one, or I can keep the current stat if I don't like any of these two. And I can keep replacing it over and over again until I get the stat that I want. However, you should know that once you do decide to change one of the stats, then you can't change any of the other stats. That little that stat that you chose to change is the only stat you'll be able to replace in the future. And with each stat replacement, the price of the replacement will cost more and more. So do keep that in mind. Now, something else that's kind of interesting, you can actually do something called transmogrify. There you go. That's how you pronounce it. Where you can put in an item and you can just select a piece of gear that you've previously picked up and change how it looks while it keeps its stats. So that's actually kind of cool. Lets you kind of customize how you look and all that stuff. So let's say I want to transmogrify this into this helm, until how this helm looks. I pay the price and there you go. Even though the image is showing one item, when I equipped it, you can see that it displays the transmogrified look. Alright, so that's actually kind of cool. This new Enchantress Artisan is actually quite welcome. It'll definitely help people gain equipment with stats that is useful to the current build of the character that they're trying to build. Alright, so along with the new Artisan, you also have something called Adventure Mode as well, which I'll go over now. So you hit M for map, and you'll get this new map thingy here that was added. And you'll see these little exclamation marks. These are essentially mini quests. They're adventures. Now, you can only gain the adventure mode after you finish the campaign of Reaper's Soul, so do keep that in mind, alright? But once you do complete the campaign, you'll get the option to do an adventure modes, do these little quests, and after you finish one of the quests, for example, actually I should get out of here because there's a few more things in towns I want to show you. But once you completed one of these little mini quests, you'll gain a bounty, and in the bounty you'll obviously gain prizes and loot and all that stuff. But you'll also collect something called Nephilim, or what do you need? Keystone fragments. There you go. When you collect 5 keystone fragments, you can actually open up a rift. All right, and in the rift, you have an even higher chance of collecting valuable loot, and also you'll also collect an item called blood shards, and this is new to the new updates and expansions as well. All right, what blood shards do is when you collect them after doing rifts, you'll have a chance of collecting even more loot. So as you can see, the new update and the expansion is really all about finding loot, which is actually kind of nice to see. But anyways, you talk to this new merchant here, and you pay a certain amount of blood shards that's listed under the price, and you can collect a random piece of gear that's listed here, and each piece of gear will have its own value. Alright, so do keep in mind you actually collect anywhere between 30 to 70 blood shards at a time, so you're not just collecting 1 or 2 at a time, so you actually collect quite a bit, meaning you can actually buy a large amount of these random gear at a time, and it actually has a chance of being a legendary as well, though most of it is yellows, which is rares, so do keep that in mind. But having that additional chance of gaining more legendaries is actually quite nice. Alright, so we're actually going to jump into a game because I've been sitting in town for much too long. So let's do this one, Clear the Caverns of Frost. Alright, let's do that. Alright, now with the new updates, one of the biggest changes to the game is that they took the auction house out of the game completely, which obviously changed the landscape of Diablo 3 quite significantly. Previously, in order to get gear that matched your playstyle and your build, the most reasonable way was to essentially play the auction house. Okay, a lot of builds required a high amount of critical hit chance and critical hit damage and stuff like that, especially when you're going for more of a DPS build. And unfortunately, in order to get perfect rolls, as they call it, as in critical hit chance and critical hits percentage, and if possible, attack speed as well, you would either have to spend literally hundreds of hours to get a random drop that suited your character, or you play the auction house, which was by far the most efficient way of doing it. And that was an issue for me. That was an issue for a lot of people. as I found I spent anywhere between 70 to 85% of my time playing Diablo looking at the auction house menu. And that's not really a fun way to play any kind of RPG. That was definitely a huge issue. It took away the focus of the game, as the game wasn't really about playing Diablo 3 anymore, as farming for loot was actually kind of inefficient. The most efficient way of getting the loot that you're looking for was to play the auction house. Alright, was essentially Diablo 3 turned from an RPG to a stock exchange simulator, and that's no way of playing the game. Alright, now a lot of people, or some people, might disagree with me. I know there's a lot of people who actually enjoyed playing the auction house, especially those who got really deep into it and spent real life money on it and stuff like that. But it really did take away the game from the game itself. Alright, because let's admit it, most people who was invested into getting a high stat character, they played the auction house. Alright, anyone with, a DPS above 500k or even above 300k back in the level 60 cap days, you can almost assure yourself they played the auction house. Alright, there's almost no way that they would have got to that kind of damage stats through just grinding for loot, as it would have taken hundreds if not thousands of hours. So they kind of fixed that by taking away the auction house altogether. I just died, god damn it. But anyways, they fixed that by taking away the auction house altogether, and with Update 2.0, what they did was they reduced the amount of loot that you can potentially gain, but the loot that does drop now have better stats that is more appropriate towards your class, and as well, they've also included many different other ways to grind for loot instead of just playing one part of the level over and over again, which was also kind of an issue for the game as well. So they gave us more options, and they made the item drops that you do get a lot, more suitable towards your character. And that is definitely something I appreciate about this update. I think that is definitely the right move and on the right track of making this game a little bit better. Taking away the auction house, I really don't mind. I definitely don't mind sitting down. I definitely don't miss, I should say, sitting on my ass looking at numbers for hours at a time. That was really boring, but it was the most efficient way of building my character. So I did it, and that kind of sucked. And I stopped playing because of that. Alright, so if you guys didn't like Diablo 3 because of that reason, I think you guys should check out the state of the game currently, as it's a lot less about that. It's more about running rifts that I mentioned earlier, as well as adventure modes and all that sort of stuff. So it definitely brought the game back to the staple of Diablo, which is grinding and leveling up and finding loot and all that kind of fun stuff, right? Alright, so I'm getting kind of mobbed by a whole bunch of people right now. I'm using a tanky kind of wizard build. I'm currently in Torment 1, which is essentially what Nightmare used to be. They kind of changed the difficulty a little bit in this game as well. It's no longer Nightmare, it's now Torment as the highest kind of a difficulty setting, and to get the best loot you play in Torment. But it is actually rather difficult, it can be, especially starting off, so do keep that in mind. For those who are attached to their level 60 gear, even if you spent hundreds if not millions of gold, maybe even billions of gold on your gear, I wouldn't get too attached. The gear that you get in the new expansion will outclass it almost right away. As soon as I hit level 61, I found loot that outclassed my level 60 stuff, and I've spent hundreds of millions. Well, no, not that much, but I definitely spent easily at least 200 million, something around that, on my gear. And again, I outclassed my old level 60 stuff fairly quickly in the new expansion. So some people might not like that, some people might actually like that, as it really does show that the new loot system is working. that I'm getting loot that is useful for my character through just drops. I don't have to do trades. I didn't have to do, you know, auction house stuff or anything like that. I just played the game and got it through grinding. So that was actually kind of nice to see. Alright. So overall, I gotta say, I do like a lot of the changes. And as mentioned before, they definitely rebalanced some of the classes as well. Took away skills, changed skills, added skills, all that stuff. I personally don't mind it. It's definitely something new for me to explore. It'll give me incentive to play the game a little bit more. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. Alright. But at the same time, if you didn't like Diablo 3, not because of just the auction house and all that stuff, but you didn't like Diablo 3 at its core, you didn't like the way the skills were handled, you didn't like the way it looked or whatever, and you prefer other top-down action RPGs such as Path of Exile, I'm not really sure if all these changes, if the expansion is going to bring you back into Diablo 3, to be completely honest, because the truth is, even with all these changes, with Reapers of Souls and version 2.0, the game still feels like Diablo 3, except it's just the focus is brought back to the game itself rather than the economy of the game, which is nice, of course. But if you were hesitant on getting into Diablo 3 because of the auction house, because of the focus on the economy, then maybe you guys should check out the game now, because like I mentioned before, the landscape is changed quite significantly. It's brought back more towards the game. It's more about grinding and farming rather than just number crunching the auction house and playing the auction house and all that stuff. That was kind of a poor design choice in my opinion, and they fixed that, which is nice to see. I noticed that a lot of my friends are back playing this game, which is good. And I'm enjoying the game again, which is of course a good thing. So yeah, Diablo 3, Reapers of Souls, not bad. I gotta say, I do like most of the changes that they've made. Now I should probably talk about the story of Reapers of Souls as well. Now the campaign is actually fairly interesting. I actually really like the story. I'm not going to go into specifics in case you guys want to get into it and you haven't yet. But it's quite enjoyable. I actually liked the main campaign story. Actually not the main campaign, but the Reaper of Souls story, a little bit more than the main campaigns. I don't know why, I don't know what drew me to it. I just liked some of the characters, I liked the plot, so I just enjoyed it overall. And it's fairly lengthy, you know, it took me a little while. It has 5 chapters, and you'll get around, depending how good your character is and your skill level and all that stuff, but you'll easily get around 8 hours or so, give or take, of gameplay out of it. Now, unless you want to rush through it, put on the lowest difficulty just to get to adventure mode, which a lot of people do, and I don't blame them for it. Because some people are more on the loot side of Diablo, rather than just playing through the story and all that stuff. And I don't blame them, like I said. But either way, there is definitely a fair amount of content in Reapers of Souls. Obviously with the story, there's also a level cap increase and new loot as well, and the adventure mode and the rifts. You know, all these are actually a lot of content when you consider the amounts of hours that you'll be essentially grinding away with the new campaign. Oh, I just lost my goblin guy. Oh well. But anyways, yeah, pretty enjoyable, not bad. So there we go, guys. Reapers of Souls. I think you guys get the picture. I don't want to drag this video on any longer than I already have. I might actually do a video on my current build as well. I might actually upload it the same day. It's essentially a tanky kind of a build. It's sort of like the poor man CM build. Since they took away CM, I kind of created my own version of the old CM build, and I did it this way because my DPS build, my glass cannon build, just got me slaughtered over and over again when I got into Torment, and so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna build a tank build then, so I can actually survive Torment. But anyways, that's enough of my rambling. I hope you guys found this informative. I hope you guys, you know, enjoyed this. If you did, you know, please send me some love, like, share, favorite, and comment. But most importantly, please subscribe, help me grow, and feed me my vegetables. Thanks for watching, guys. Aldershot out.